real attempt at rebooting the world's greatest detective since Christian Bale retired from the role in 2012's The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, there was Ben Affleck, but can we really count him? Let's be real. He didn't get that solo movie, he never had the chance to truly shine as the character. As much as I do enjoy that interpretation, today we are here to celebrate. We are here to celebrate a film that I feel downright blessed to have watched 4 times. You see, this movie isn't just an incredibly well-made adaptation that shows Batman in a way that we have never seen him before on screen. This isn't just a brilliant comic book movie that adapts to a darker tone while keeping the source material in mind. This movie is a masterpiece, and if I'm being completely real, holds up against some of the better movies that I have seen altogether. There is nothing quite like The Batman. Now that immediately seems like high praise, I understand that, but after 4 viewings of this film, I can wholeheartedly say it's one of the easiest 5-star ratings I've ever had to give to a superhero film. And this comes from a number of reasons, but one of the main ones is this man right here. Robert Pattinson, or as he should now be known to the world. The levels of intricacy he brings to this role is immense. This Bruce Wayne is my favourite adaptation that I've seen, and I will admit, hand on heart, I think that's the right side, I have not seen them all. I will say that outright. I've not seen every adaptation, but from the ones that I have seen, he's my favourite. Every other iteration that I see from here on out has a mountain to climb. Robert Pattinson has always been a phenomenal actor. And a lot of people know this, but since Twilight, it kind of appears on the surface like he's had quite a quiet life, but when you look a bit deeper, he's been starring in a lot of lesser known films. There's stuff like Good Time that he was absolutely phenomenal in. He's really earned his title as an amazing actor and didn't even have to do it in the public light. He brings such a subtle strength to this role of Bruce Wayne. This iteration is one that I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure if they've done this before, but it's almost as if he's running away from this billionaire lifestyle. Like, he detests the concept of being Bruce Wayne. And I'm not saying that as like a criticism, like, oh, there wasn't enough like Bruce Wayne in this movie because this version really doesn't like that billionaire lifestyle. I'm actually saying that to say that, sometimes change is welcome, and in this instance, very welcome. Whenever we see him as Batman, he is powerful and he commands the screen. His voice work, his costume, the striking way he walks, or his brutal combat, all of it's perfect. When we do get to see him as Bruce Wayne, it's a completely different ballgame, with this man looking so uncomfortable, it's as though he's been hiding for years. I love every little detail in this performance, and for me at least, it becomes clear that Robert Pattinson is probably the first actor we've seen that was born to play Batman. Very over-exaggerated reaction, I know, but I fully believe it. I mean, it has to be up there with some of the greatest comic book castings ever, right? Batman isn't the only thing that works about the Batman. In just 3 hours of runtime, it feels as though we've had several movies worth of world building. Because this iteration of Gotham is just stunning. It's visually striking, lit beautifully, and just downright awful looking. This is a place I never want to visit. Living in Scotland, I encounter a lot of rain, but compared to Gotham, Scotland's probably a holiday resort. Like, it always rains. I genuinely can't remember a nighttime moment in this film where it isn't pouring. The city looks horrible, and that is great. Visually, the film gave me similar vibes to the Arkham trilogy that I'm currently playing through. The way it's lit really helps sell the lack of life and vibrancy in the city. It's so bleak and dull, and it's honestly so strange to be saying this and not meaning it as a criticism. But most important of all, Gotham feels alive. It feels vividly haunting. Every shot of a dark corner or an alleyway has so much weight to it, you'd think it was me a few years ago. The film has this beautiful way of framing Gotham in this light that terrifies you. You're feeling everything that those criminals are feeling in that opening scene, which, by the way, one of the best comic book movie opening scenes ever. Fucking immaculate. As well as Bruce and the city he protects, there's going to be a plethora of characters in the film that really help flesh it out, and create this world that feels lived in, really helping us connect with it even more. So, after its debut in the Eternals video, allow me to present to you the character speedrun. Round 2. The Batman. 3, 2, 1, go. This is my favourite iteration of Catwoman, not that there's an insane amount of competition that I've seen so far. Her character is filled with trauma that's explored in a very caring way that doesn't in any way bloat the film. In fact, almost going to work in its favour, selling her as a potential partner for the Batman even more than she would have been had we not seen this depth. The Penguin was played by Colin Farrell, as difficult as that may be to believe, and honestly I'm not quite sure there's a more justifiable use of the phrase disappearing into the role. Farrell is amazing in this film, and I can't quite decide if he's intentionally written as a pretty funny character, considering he talks as though he's been taken straight out of some Italian mob boss gang from an 80s movie. This was in many ways his origin too, and a few weeks ago it was confirmed that the Penguin Limited series is happening, and I'm very intrigued to see them delve further into the mind of Oswald Cobblepot, and what a name that is. Now, this is probably the character I know the least about, as I'm not well versed in Batman's rogue gallery as much as I'd like to be, but I did like Falcone here, I can't lie. Big part of that was down to John Turturro, don't get me wrong, but come on, who doesn't love this guy? He got pissed on by a Transformer. Now let's talk about my one gripe character-wise. As far as the portrayal goes, I think Andy Serkis is actually pretty great with what we have of him, but that's actually the issue. Not what we have, but how much there is. Alfred is dangerously underutilised, and I know that he's the big emotional pivot for Bruce in the turning of the third act, but we barely see him throughout the movie. Now I'm going to say that's purely based on the setup of the movie though, because we may have been following Bruce, but this is very much a Batman movie, where Bruce Wayne spends most of the time reluctant to even come out. It makes sense that Alfred might be featured more in future films where Bruce embraces himself a little more maybe. This is the best Jim Gordon we've had, and apologies to Gary Oldman, but Jeffrey Wright nailed it. I love his rapport with Batman when they're together. They actually really sell this dynamic the film tries to show between them, and they exchange conversation like old friends, and honestly I really enjoy it. I loved every minute Wright had on screen, and I cannot wait to see him return in the sequel. Saving arguably the best non-Batman character till last, the Riddler is probably one of my favourite comic book movie villains now. Definitely my favourite from DC's live action adventures so far, and maybe one day I'm going to really dive in the depth of the Dark Knight and explain why it isn't Heath Ledger. But for now I'd rather focus on Paul Dano, because this guy is unintentionally funny in this role, and it doesn't even take away anything from the performance. He's so captivating when he needs to be, and while the motives feel a little weak at times, especially with the third act setup, I really can't find much to complain about when it comes to the character because he is fucking terrifying. People, the Batman is a masterpiece, plain and simple. It's intricate and it's complex in everything it tries to pull off, and in my eyes it pulls it off to perfection. Matt Reeves has created something genuinely magical here, and I cannot wait to see him and Robert Pattinson diving further into the lore and the depth of this Gotham City. The movie makes you feel so much, and that's always important as an audience member. Like, a film doesn't work quite as well if it can't make you feel something, and I think this movie is immaculate in every level, honestly. Like every film, I have my nitpicks, but they're not worth talking about, purely because they literally do not impact my opinion on the film at all. With a score that's stunning to listen to, upping every scene a whole level or two, I do not exaggerate when I say that the Batman is something special in itself, as well as being the start of something beautiful. A story that is about to finally do this character the justice he deserves. The story of a man believing he was the embodiment of vengeance as he realizes he has to become something more. And I do not know about you, but that excites me. With Spider-Man No Way Home and the Batman being back-to-back comic book releases and also being absolutely phenomenal, we have to hope that Morbius can keep up the hype train. Do we reckon it's going to do it?